Hey guys, welcome to the kids lesson of the week. We are back today talking about the Apostle Paul. Let's dive right into the story for today. Paul was concerned about the city of Athens. It was full of false idols that people had made. It made Paul sad to see people worshipping false gods. Paul went to the synagogue and talked with the Jews about Jesus. Every day in the marketplace, he would tell the good news about Jesus and the resurrection to anyone who was there. Some philosophers, men who liked to think, reason, and argue, heard Paul teach.
What is this babbler trying to say?
They asked one another.
It seems to be preaching about a foreign god.
Other men wanted to hear more, so they invited Paul to speak at the Areopagus. This is a place where people came to discuss important ideas. The men said,
What you say sounds strange to us. We want to know more.
Paul spoke respectfully.
People of Athens,
He began.
I see you are a very religious people. I even saw an altar you have for an unknown god. I can tell you about him. The God who made the world is Lord of heaven and earth. He does not live in places that people make. He does not need anything from us because He is the one who gives life and everything else. He created people of every nation and wants them to know Him as God. We live and move and exist through Him. We are His, and He is not made of gold or silver or stone like man makes.
Paul continued.
God is alive, and He commands all people everywhere to repent and turn away from disobeying Him.
Paul also explained that God sent Jesus. When Paul told how Jesus rose from the dead, some people made fun of Paul. Others wanted to hear more. Because Paul taught the good news of Jesus, some men and women in Athens became followers of Jesus.
In the lesson today, we continued following with the Apostle Paul in his journey around the world at the time. In today's lesson, he's in the city of Athens, Greece, which still exists today. This city was home to the Parthenon. The Parthenon is a big religious building, or was a big religious building, that is dedicated to Athena, which is the goddess of wisdom, inspiration, civilization, the arts, and more. So it's a very religious city, although they didn't know at the time very much about the true God that Paul follows. Paul is there, he's waiting for Silas and Timothy to meet up with him. Remember, we heard about them in a past lesson. So he was distressed while he was waiting. He was distressed by all the idols that were all around the whole city to false gods, like Athena. Athens was the intellectual and cultural city of the world, and that meant there was a lot of people that go there who are really smart. They go there to learn a lot of things if they're interested in learning and being academic. So it might be similar to today, some kind of town with a big university in it. After Paul saw all these ungodly influences, he preached both in the Jewish synagogue and in the marketplace to non-Jewish people. So he was trying to reach everybody who was there in Athens. Those who are in Athens, as we mentioned, since so many of them are there just seeking to learn more, a lot of them were very interested in what Paul had to say. So they invited him to the Areopagus. Paul was really respectful when he addressed them in the Areopagus, and he said he knew how religious they were, and he saw by all the different gods that they had things dedicated to around the city. But Paul began to tell them about this unknown God that some of them had been worshiping, but they didn't know who that God was. He says God doesn't live in temples, he doesn't live in things made by hand. Paul preached the whole gospel, starting with the beginning of creation of the world and all the way up to what Jesus did, dying on the cross and rising from the dead. Some people ended up making fun of him when he talked about that part, but others believed. And there were some people who he convinced that day, who God spoke to in their hearts, and then they decided to follow Jesus as well. And one of those people was a guy named Dionysius. And Dionysius was a member of the judicial council, what it's called, which just means that he could be of great influence for telling people about Christ in Athens. He was like a really high up person who had a lot of influence. Sometimes when we think about sharing our faith with others, strangers even, it's a little intimidating because we think, what if they make fun of us? That happened to Paul in this story. Some people made fun of him when he said things, but at the same time, other people believed him. Sometimes that's a risk we might have to take. We might have to have some people make fun of us because we're a Christian, but that might mean that still others will believe, and in the end, that's what really matters. That's our lesson for today. If your parents received our monthly newsletter that went out in the mail, then you may have received some activity sheets for the lessons we've been doing and a few of the ones we're going to be doing after this. So if you have them, the one for today is Unit 3, Session 3. So if your parents can find that in the package, then you can fill that out after this lesson, and then you'll be right on track with our lessons. See you guys next time.